You're listening to This Week in No Code plus AI, with weekly episodes sharing the latest advancements of AI, plus exclusive interviews, founders using these tools. So without any further ado, let's get started. And now here I am with Steve, the co-founder and CEO of Builder.io. Steve, welcome onto our show.
Thanks, JJ.
I'm really excited to have you here. Steve, you have a rich background going from UC Berkeley to starting a couple of startups to now actually being the CEO of Builder.io, another one of the vibe coding platforms that are competing in this tight industry. Tell us about your background before we get into Builder.io for our session today.
Totally. I started my career in design. I wanted to build cool products, and I had some background in some art. And so I learned to design. I used the Adobe Creative Suite, Illustrator, Photoshop, After Effects, could make product designs that were decent. At the time, I thought that Adobe because Adobe had a product for everything. I thought they'd have a product for like builds, the app too. iOS App Store had just come out when I was in college. So it was like, where's the Adobe app to build an iPhone app? And realized, okay, it's not a thing. So then went to like, okay, I need to find, I was going to UC Berkeley. There's developers everywhere. Like, let me find some friends who will code this, they'll make it, give them designs and feedback. And learned really quickly that just because you design something doesn't mean when it's coded, it looks anything remotely like your design. If you spend infinite hours perfecting every pixel of that design, doesn't matter. Some dude is just going to code it from scratch and just kind of like, maybe the original version of vibe coding is just like sloppy code, like, looks good enough. And it's like, oh God, it's really frustrating. Turns out arguing with developers ad nauseum is not the best way to get them to go back and adjust padding for the 100th time. And so I started learning to code. I thought, how hard could it be? Adobe apps were pretty hard to learn. Like, coding can't be that much harder. Turns out it's 100 times more hard. You don't have to be like some order to do it. It just takes way more time. You have to learn all this stuff. That's like, what's the point of this? Just to do the basics that draw a rectangle on the screen. It would normally be easier with a visual application. And I learned that stuff. I could contribute to the code. Now I probably identify more as a developer. I do lots of coding. I jump straight to code to get ideas out, less into a tool like Figma, even though Figma is fantastic. I have kind of been obsessed with since then of like, why is coding so hard? Why can't it be visual? Did multiple startups. Some were actually trying to explore the space and how can we make it GUI driven coding. Builder started off as a way to solve that for where nobody seemed to be solving it, which is like, there's Webflow framers, a million people solving for like, I just want to spin up a website, personal site, whatever. But if I work at a business, I worked at this large scale e-commerce site, we had this big giant Angular app, and the marketing team needed new landing pages, new homepage updates every day. And they would come to me and like, they'd make a page in Webflow and be like, here, look, we made the page. Can you just put it on the Angular site? And I'd be like, for the 100th time, that's not how it works. You don't just put a Webflow page in an Angular site and different technologies. And Builder was originally set out to solve that. Give me a GUI editor that worked with my Angular components and code. And it was pretty cool.
That was 2019.
That was started in 2019.
Well, quite a while ago. I mean, 6 years ago, you had this vision. Yes. That's really exciting, especially now.
Totally. I mean, the idea was the same thing that everybody's chasing now. It's make everyone a first-class contributor to code, whether you're a hobby project or more where our focus was that was more uniquely differentiated, which is like within a larger business that has all these assets and code and developers, it's got to work together. And that's where we started to see a lot of success, grew a lot. We called it a visual CMS because headless CMSs were a thing. They just plug and play with your tech. And the headless CMSs were letting you update like an image and a piece of text. And we're like, update everything, just drag and drop to whatever you want. And it was cool. The challenge we hit though was twofold. One challenge is, just because you can make coding visual doesn't inherently mean it's now easy. So like if you've used a tool like Webflow, a very like high control responsive editor, it's hard to learn, man. You're learning like inline block and float and flex blocks. And it's like, you want to just throw a marketer in there and there's, I just want the button over there now. And like, with like a block-based responsive tool, like you drag it over there, but then it pops over here, and then you're like, no, I want it there. It pops over there, and you're like, God, what's going on? It's really infuriating. And we explored all this stuff. Like, can we make it more like Figma and you absolute position things? And we use some type of like machine learning to bring it back to responsive layout. And we're going deep on all this stuff. And then large language models came out, and there's just say to the AI overlord what you want and you get it. And it was like, wait, this is way better. And so we started adapting the product to be more like, dragging and dropping is great, but you don't have to use that. You can just type and get what you want. And more we started finding people like wanted to handle like more advanced use cases. I want to do more. And that's where we've kind of landed where we are today, which is we have a very robust publishing platform where if you want to throw marketers at your existing site or app and publish 100 pages a day without updating code, but using AI, you can. But the thing we're probably going to talk about more today is what we call Fusion, which is we kind of took all that same tech and said, let's just throw it right at the code base. Let's just take any code base in any state and let's visualize it and let's just vibe code changes. So the big difference between like that and like a lovable Bolt V0 whatever, like, everybody's got one.
Yeah.
There's like a million startups doing this. Like everybody's got the same site, type what you want, get an app. And the big major difference is what we do will plug into any repository you have. So like today, in fact, why don't I share screen? I'll show you something.
Your existing code, you connect it to Fusion, and then it visualizes it, and you can start editing it.
Exactly. And so here's where it ends up kind of sitting. So we distinctly do not compete with tools like Cursor, Windsurf, GitHub Copilot. Like those are tools for, I mean, actually, I don't have it open right now. Well, there we go. It's launching. Those are tools for developers to edit code. That's, you look at code, and that's great. That's not what we're solving for. But similar to those, like the goal here is it needs to work with any code base. You need to just throw it in any code base, any size business, any repository. It needs to just work. But in order to work for anyone that, even if you're not a developer, it has to have what you could call like a consumer grade UX. So it's got to feel like Bolt lovable V0, but kind of secretly be as powerful as like a Cursor in that it can update an application that's like 10 million lines of code, and you have single files that are like 30,000 lines of code in just a single component or whatever. And so that's what we focus on. We focus on like, hey, you're an existing business. You've got, however many developers on staff. But more importantly, you've got product managers with ideas. You've got designers with tons of great input. And let's just throw them at the code directly. Builder, Fusion, that you can go further with just the AI because it's built to handle big, large, robust apps. As the app keeps getting bigger, it doesn't become a problem. But the core kind of like thing that no one else is solving is like, 99% of the code written still today is on big, giant existing products. Let's make sure AI can do that, but everyone on the team can contribute to it.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand. How can you take any code base and provide a visual editor to it? Like, how are you able to do that from a tech perspective? That seems insanely hard.
It definitely has some unique challenges. There's really two elements of it. Element one is we kick off. So you connect a repository, GitHub, and it turns out if you're talking to like large businesses, they also use like Azure ATO and Bitbucket and GitLab. There's all these different providers. You integrate all those. You spin up a server and you load the code into the server, and you spin up an agent that takes a look at the code and figures out how to at least sort of like run the development processes that developers need. Doesn't need to install some stuff, doesn't need to load a dev server. And then you load that up and you connect that to, an iframe in the browser. So at least we can preview the website or app. There's a lot of little things there, like unlike something like a Bolt or Lovable, you need to be running big servers. You need to be running a big, beefy server to run these large code bases. And the beautiful part, though, is that LLMs are very good these days at navigating a larger code base. You do have to do some tricks around indexing. You have to borrow a lot of the hard stuff that Cursor and Windsurf and others do. But again, married to the simple UIs. The crazy part that we do, though, is we go a lot further on like, again, when you're handling more advanced use cases, more businesses of any size, applications of any size and scale, just clicking on something and like changing the color doesn't really count as a visual editor. Like I need something more like Figma. I need to see everything. I need to see my layers. I need to rearrange. I need to have all the options. That's where things got crazy, and we had to do some really crazy. I swear, I think it was like an epiphany, some random middle of the night, like months ago, where like dawned on me, like, wait, we're thinking about this all wrong. To hook up our visual editor to any code base, like we had to sort of like invert the way we do it. It's a little bit hard to explain, but like, and then the beauty is as AI is editing, you can see the changes in real time. And then at any point you're happy with your updates. Unlike what you do on like a more hobby project, you don't usually just say like, oh, host this now. You have an existing app. There's already a something.com that is this big giant app. And so what you do is you hit the send pull request button. For anyone familiar with coding, that's what the developers are doing. You always send a pull request to review, and that becomes part of the main code. And that's kind of what the flow looks like, at least.
So it's a visual development tool aimed for more professional programs, enterprises that have a large scale code base, but want to make it easier to edit that code base in a visual way. And also to allow your marketers, your operation folks to get in there and build some pages and submit pull requests for those additions too.
Exactly. Like we are all first-class coders. It's no more like, if you're not a developer, you could go make some little Airtable table, but like, that's it. It's like, I'll give a quick example. Our product manager sends pull requests all the time. Like features now are no longer like, oh, when it gets to the top of the development queue in 2 months, we'll work on it. Our PMs just ship features, just new feature, like bulk asset management, project pinning. Anyone in the company can just add features or improvements or design tweaks to the product directly, which, as you can imagine, like kind of the way the Figma made design collaborative, like we all can be collaborating on the same design canvas. You don't have to be an expert designer to get in there and like give feedback and like talk about it with your teammates, ask questions, whatever. Now code is that. Code can be that canvas, and LLMs are so good at code. A lot of times people find skipping the design process entirely is more efficient. You just go to the LM and say like, hey, make all these design changes, and it'll just do it. And you're like, hey, if it's sufficiently knowledgeable about your design system and other things, which is something you find you have to go pretty deep on when you're doing connect any app type stuff. And you change everything about the product any day that you want if you really wanted to.
So when you started in 2019, were you pulling any reference from no-code platforms at that time? I think that was just around the time where Bubble had raised their 100 million Series A. You had Webflow and many of these others. Was no-code an inspiration to you, or were you kind of thinking in your own in other ways?
Good question. So I was really back and forth. So there were like kind of three options you could take inspiration from: Webflow, Bubble, and Figma. And I really wanted to, I had mixed opinions about Bubble. Bubble was an incredibly impressive platform in the features and functionalities. I hated the UI of Bubble. And it had some nuances of like just doing basic responsive design was kind of not possible / super awkward.
Especially back then, it
was really bad. But
Yeah.
the capabilities were beyond anyone else.
Yeah.
Nobody could even remotely compete in terms of what you could build
Right.
with no code with Bubble. I really wanted it to be just like Figma, like just feel like something familiar. And what the constant tension was, I wanted it to feel like Figma, but it was a lot easier to make it more like Webflow. So it was just like more Figma, but it didn't really work. Like it gets all these idiosyncrasies of Webflow. Eventually, we made it very, very similar to Webflow. Later, though, I think Framer was the first to prove like you can have both. You can really make it feel like Figma, but have the control of something like Webflow. And they really proved a lot of that out, which is really cool. And we actually took a moment where we started to, over time, be like, hey, this needs to be more like Framer. And the weird thing is we never actually went after things Framer was doing specifically. We really kind of kept pushing in the make it more like Figma direction, occasionally use Framer's inspiration. They did some very clever tricks there. But everything definitely got turned on its head when, the earliest entrants were like, Bolt was probably the first to, I think, very cleanly do the chat on the left, app on the right. And that's where everything was like, I remember we had this moment of like, go more in like the Framer direction where pages are still kind of structured. And it really was a marriage of kind of Figma and Webflow, or just, chat on left, app on right. We settled on that and never really looked back. But the idea became, there's actually overarchingly three modes. Mode 1 is just chat, go crazy. Mode 2 is design mode, where it actually suddenly takes your app and just makes it feel just like Figma. It's like you've got the style bar on the right, the chat or layers on the left, and just it should feel. We really almost like ripped off Figma's UIs. We just want it to be just familiar, like you just know what to do and what to click on. And then code mode, of course. If you just want to look like an IDE and edit code, you can do that. And that's kind of how it evolved, if that makes sense.
And what customers do you have today that like, and what are the use cases they're finding success? I saw that Zapier was one of your customers, and you had some other great enterprise customers. What is like a typical use case where it's like, that's a great ICP, they come in, this makes so much sense for them?
Great question. So historically, if you want to use our CMS, it was usually like marketing team wants to update an existing application a lot. So you've got a React Next.js app like most people do. Marketing team just got to crank out new pages and updates. E-commerce is a big one with like very large e-commerce customers. And that was like the no-brainer use case for a long time. What it's evolved to, though, is in the most extreme degree, which is not usually the way you want to pitch a business, but like it's something that we're seeing. We're at this point where like any business at any time could probably work faster and more efficiently if everyone could just get closer to the code and just automate more of like getting their ideas right into the code, so that it gets product manager with feature ideas or improvements, tracking, whatever, design, product and UX design on improving UX, drafting, converting designs into the code and getting it really perfect down to every little pixel and state detail right there crafted in the code. Or engineers who just, let's keep on the design to code side, is very tedious to go from Figma design to code. And even with the latest crazy AI tools. So everybody finds these like accelerants, and every business is building. So there's a part of me that's like, it's a really interesting time we're in right now. It's like almost everybody all the time, which is again, the worst ICP to have, the worst ideal customer, beat everybody. So if you want to narrow it down a little bit further, it's usually going to be product teams that need to work with their own tech stack. You find at a large company, they have their own custom design system. Microsoft has this thing called Fluent. Everybody has their own design system. It's usually fully private, and they have to work within that. And they have product managers and designers and developers. Just like I was mentioning, they need to move faster at something. Product managers usually prototyping, because every business has a certain risk tolerance I will say, I think a couple of years from now, like customers adopting today, probably in a year or two, we'll probably get to the point where we are internally, which is like PMs, designers, support team, everybody in the business can just ship features. That's just normal. Microsoft tomorrow is not going to have their PMs shipping features. Microsoft is going to, as just a hypothetical example, their product managers are going to prototype. They're going to make hypothetical apps using the design system, but they're not going to ship it. They're going to hand it to engineering. They're going to get feedback, stuff like that. Design, we do find it's more common that designers, they want to manage design systems directly. They want to go straight to code. That we see people pick up pretty immediately. And developers, whether it's design to code, being able to unblock themselves on the UI side, or something we're experimenting more now with is like background agents that anyone can use, which is basically like, you have Jira tickets or linear tickets or whatever. You just start assigning work to the agent. You just give the work to the AI and the AI tells you when the work is done. And like or Slack, just tag it in Slack. You have a conversation, just Slack tag it. Hey, build this thing for me, please. We have customer feedback come through Slack, and a cool one is like good piece of feedback comes in. PM just makes a thread, build this, address this feedback. Great, does it. And we're getting to the point where like, if we have a sprint, like we have a set of work we want to do, the first step is for the product manager to assign every item to AI and see, can AI handle 30% of the sprint, 50%? Let AI handle as much of the sprint as it can, and everything left over goes to humans. So it's like before the human work sprint, there's pre-sprints, a pure AI sprint, get all the work done with agents, and then the rest goes to humans. It's pretty wild. It leaves it pretty open-ended, but like people trying to ship stuff is going to be the core audience.
I think the biggest argument with this today is the quality of the code. At a production level code base, how can you trust the quality of the code that this AI is doing? Where do you stand on this? Because it seems like you're pretty bullish that, hey, this is actually doing really well for us. But in some other cases, we just see it's spaghetti and whatnot. So where do you stand on this?
Good question. So here's the thing I found, especially with models like Anthropic's Claude models. They're really good. They use really good reinforcement learning to train their models to write code just like they see other code in the code base. So it's like the more code context you have, the better. If you give it a whole repo with tons of existing code in it, it's really good at pattern matching and writing code like you do. So we actually tend to find code quality tends to be one of the biggest expectations of problems from teams, and tends to be one of the smallest actual issues. The most common actual issue tends to be the sort of derail that AI can get in sometimes. And this is where I think the most important state we're in today is this marriage of people coding and no code together in a way that works really well together. So what I mean is a lot of people have a great intuition with AI, and they just know that I'm going to add a page to the site, and the page is going to have a hero and accordion, and AI is going to do a great job, and it does. And then somebody else is going to jump in and be like, build me TikTok.com. And then it won't. And they'll be like, why not work? Make work. And it's like, AI is just going to start derailing, and like, it might just get worse and worse. Or there's cases where even like the most experienced prompter, and by experienced prompter, like I'm not advocating for like people online, like there's only one good way to write a prompt. You have to have this. In my opinion, just say what you want and just be specific enough that if a human can understand you, the AI is good enough. But like sometimes you could paint yourself into a corner. I write code by hand very little these days. I have Fusion, our product, or Claude Code do most things for me. And there's definitely times where I'm just like, like that Jira integration I mentioned. I just told Claude to do it. Like Jira integration now, make it so I can assign, make it so like this. There are times where it clearly sort of like gets derailed. And that's one challenge with AI is, I mentioned like it looks at the existing code and writes more code like that. If it starts writing the wrong things and then writing more stuff like that, it could go more and more deviating. And so there are times where I'm just like, fix a thing. And I'm clearly in a loop and it's not figuring it out. That's where you need a human to be involved. But sometimes I have to just be like, okay, Claude is lost. Let me rewind a few loops here and just get in there and do it the old fashioned way. Or in the case of like Fusion and a broader team, it's going to be more like, hey, I did a bunch of great stuff, but then I really got stuck in a loop in this one spot. Let me rewind a bit, get an engineer to unblock me. They can look at it and be like, oh, I know how to do this, up, and then you're unblocked, keep going. That is the main thing that we find comes up when using AI tools. And you can solve that either one by just being really good at what are the right use cases. Prototyping is a good one. We don't need advanced functionality because it's just a prototype. UI work is a good one. Visual UI work using the design system, very good one. The more you get into like advanced functionality, I want to build this back-end feature with the front end connected to the API, connected to a database. That's where you might need the human in the loop closer. And that's like the balance we're able to find. And the models get better. We're getting better at context engineering. And it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, in my opinion. But that's the drawback you'll hit and what you want to be wary of and know kind of good ways around.
Yeah, maybe this would be a good time to show a little bit more Build.io in a demo. Can you show us
Totally.
something?
I
I
love
think you
demos.
guys have a really strong Figma integration too, or maybe just
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
show us the high level how that might work and how you can bring in those designs into Build.io, etc.
Totally. Let's do this. Let me hop over and show you some stuff. Let's show two things. So let's start with just like the zoom out view. So Fusion in a nutshell is the big box you can just type stuff into that people are familiar with, but especially the ability to connect existing repositories. And I don't mean this. There are other tools that allow a superficial connection. Like, yeah, you can just like ingest some code and just like push code back to it. What I mean connect to repo, I mean like any repository, any size, and it uses workflows. I'll show you like teams expect, which is pull requests, not just like pushing code. And so here's a bunch of applications I've connected. I'm going to jump into a few and show you what you can do. So this one is interesting because this is kind of Fusionception. This is Fusion editing Fusion. So I'll log into this.
So essentially, you built Fusion, the app.
Yes. I rising to stop screen share for a split second while I log
Yeah,
in. So I'll share my
problem.
email address and then we'll go back to it. But yeah, a lot of the stuff in Fusion is built with Fusion, which is pretty exciting to me. That was always the original dream.
Yeah.
Like honestly, with the origin of Builder, like my dream since the beginning is that our designers and product managers should be able to go in and just edit the applications like our devs do. And before LLMs, that was truly unfathomable. Like I would spend so many nights just pondering, how could we do this? How could we add these abstractions or these constraints in code or these crazy compiler tricks? And there really never was an answer. And I really would have never predicted the answer we got, which is just straight up super intelligent AI that can do anything you want. It was like, okay, that was a curveball. So here's Fusion in Fusion. Let's rip out a prompt. I have an idea for this. So here's how we display the projects. I'll show you the design modes in a second, but let's just do a prompt and say, change the
I
projects.
assume you did some kind of like branch off or something like that. So, you're in your own environment right now.
Great question. To create, basically what you do with these repos connected is you hit the plus new branch button. So every time you're branching off and you're in a safe dev environment. It's definitely not the case that when I update now is going to suddenly go to production users.
Yeah, beautiful.
I'm just saying this is something we've been discussing internally, is changing this grid of projects into a table instead. One thing that's kind of interesting is like there are some products that have like enhance my prompt feature that like elaborates on a prompt. The beautiful thing about reasoning models is this thinking process is effectively, it's just generating a better prompt there because everything it thinks the AI sees and just kind of an interesting nuance. Let me jump to other projects. We can see like a bit of variety here because the whole idea of connecting to an existing repository is it can use any stack. It can design like any designer designs. So like this uses a very different look and feel. I'll say to this one, like add a contact us page, and add it to the nav. I'll go to, here's Cloudscape dashboard. This is AWS, which is not the prettiest, but we're going to work with that too. I'm going to go in here and say like add a new weather dashboard powered by the Open Meteor API.
So we're now in 3 different apps processing 3 different requests at the same time.
Yeah, hell yeah. You can do 10 updates to the same app at once too. It's pretty fun. The agent can use tools here. That's one thing that you don't see in many vibe coding tools or really at all is like actual tool use MCP, like real agents in here. There's a lot of real agents in the coding tools for developers, but not in the vibe coding tools yet. Do a web search to learn how to use this API. So I'm telling it to the API to use. I'm telling it look it up on the web.
That was interact mode that you put it into in order to interact with it like that?
Good question. Actually, let's cover the modes here. I'll show some of the results and cover the modes. Let me go in here and I'm going to do one other cool thing where I'm just going to grab a ticket. So
you're in Linear right now, grabbing a ticket that maybe a PM created and you're going to look to address.
Exactly. And I'm going to do like my favorite prompt is just to say, do this and paste the ticket. Do whatever the ticket says. Or like if you have a PRD in Notion, you can just paste the Notion and say, do this, build this, whatever you want. And so, yeah, let's talk about the different modes. So here's one of the examples I did. This is a simple one, add a new page. So we'll go to our contact page and we'll see, cool, we've got this contact page. Let me zoom out a little bit so we can see it more like a normal user. Great, contact us page with a form. It's using our icons, our buttons, etc. Let's go in and switch to design mode now because it basically made us a design, but again, this is a tool kind of for more professional use cases. Let's get more into details. So I can go in and click whatever I want. Like here.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect example. We see that send message with the button and the label and the icon, but they're on a different row essentially.
Exactly. So I can switch to the horizontal layout. Perfect. Beautiful.
And if it does look like Figma in the sense you have your margin, you have your padding, you have your line, and it is actual code that you're interacting with, but changing it in a Figma style editor.
Exactly.
That's
And even
cool.
if you've seen a visual editor that can change styling, like here we can do like all the Figma stuff. Like I want to put the community Discord on top. Cool. I'm just going to drag it, to the top of the list. Or if you want more precise control, you can always use the layers editor as well. So I can drag these
Beautiful.
as layers, all the kind of Figma stuff that you're familiar with.
And you also like copy and paste to create new layers in that way?
Hell yes. We want 2 quick links, copy, paste. Great. This is like your full Figma over code. This was always kind of like the dream historically that we're just kind of like doing here now. And then the cool part is I can apply the changes, but I can add another prompt too. Like maybe I'll select this and say also add an FAQ accordion.
Oh, I see. So now you switched over, you're in design mode, and it kind of looked at all the lines that it would change. And now it's like, okay, now I'm going to apply those changes to the code base after I visually made that.
Exactly. Because the idea is under the hood, you could use any tech stack. You might use SCSS. So just to figure out how to reference this code, how to reuse your components and tokens. That's where it does all that analysis now. And I could combine it with the other prompts. Like you'll see it's going to do that, and it's going to add the FAQ. The other cool, I'll show you the Figma piece in a second. But the other cool thing is, let's go over to maybe see if this Cloudscape dashboard is giving us what we want. And then our other one, in one of these, so I'm just hopping between these apps. One of these I found an error. Nice part is I just click fix the error for me.
Steve, and this might sound a little too simple and silly, but do you identify as an IDE, or is it more than that? Or like, is it not that? Because in so many ways, you have all this, code elsewhere, and then you bring it into yours, and then you totally change the way that you build with that code, but you can still export that code, etc. So kind of feels like an IDE, but in a different way. What's your response?
So we consider ourselves VDE, a visual development environment. So it is a development environment. My favorite kind. So that's the idea. It sounds like the name you grok. And in fact, we can look at, remember we did our design updates. We've got our additional links. We've got our fixes to the button applied, and we've got our accordion. Here, I have this accordion, and there's 2 things I could run into. I can just say, hey, move the accordion to fill the full width. But like that's just kind of annoying, kind of tedious. There's another case to be like a layer up, like here. Cool. Actually, I want one more layer in. Let's do like this. And let's move this one like this.
Again, and then change the order. Boom.
There you go.
You know what this solves? And the most frustrating thing for me is when you just need to change that one thing and you get stuck in that AI cycle of just like, I just need to change this one thing and you're not doing it. Let me change this one thing. And I've felt that way so many times with the other competitors that you mentioned of just like, and they're visual editors. It's like you literally change like one thing, not like this where you can literally get in there and change everything. So that's really exciting for me because I come from the no code visual code background. I know the infrastructure. I know what I need to, say, but don't actually know how to write all the syntax and everything. Exactly.
That's the idea. And like leverage that, leverage the tools, leverage the workflows. But make it easy. I don't mean to make this sound like a sales pitch, but like that's the idea. Let me show you. Let's show some Figma stuff briefly here too, and then we can switch out of demo mode. But I'll just show you briefly. Like this was the customer dashboard that we asked for. Oh, we found one error. Let's let it correct that. But let's do some Figma stuff. So let's go to the homepage of this, and I'll show you. Let's jump to Figma.
So we're looking at the homepage of the Builder Academy for builder.io.
Yep. And in Figma, we actually made a couple changes. So actually, I want this hero to have like this centered layout, white background, gray border. And so like a lot of demos of like Figma to code is like something brand new. But what we're going to do here is we're going to make updates to existing things. And we're going to see that it's not rewriting all of our code. It can actually intelligently make just the small updates. So I'll grab this one piece of stuff that stayed mostly the same, but also changed. Launch the Builder plugin. All you have to do is hit this smart export button, copies to my clipboard, and I'll paste it as context. So I'll go into design mode here. I will select this and I'll just say, update this to have the new design updates and just paste it. So here's my design up, and I'll do one more thing. And I'm going to grab these 2 layers. I've got these 2 new things, and there's a note from the designer like, hey, there should be a carousel. Let's just roll with this. Let's go in and say.
So in Figma, you're using the Figma plugin, or you created your own Figma plugin. You could just copy those elements in Figma, bring them into build.io, paste them there, and just give it additional prompt or instructions to add into your code base.
Exactly. Copy paste from Figma. We'll let this run. What you'll see it do, it'll apply the design changes, and then it'll also give us this new carousel. The cool part is
Figma needs to stop doing what they're doing and just buy you guys, because with the integration that you have and everything, this is awesome.
It's definitely an open question of like, yeah, what does the future of design workflows look like with AI being so
Yeah,
good? I mean, here's like that weather dashboard we asked for. We could switch cities. It's loading the data. I have feedback on how I'd love to change the UI, but what I want to show instead
sure.
is this send PR button. The important part about the send PR button, I'll do it on this one.
For this
Go
weather
ahead.
dashboard, did you spin that up anew, or was that an existing project that we're looking at now? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this was an existing project. Let's go to the
So you
root
already
of it.
have all those weather APIs and everything integrated in
Exactly.
that way.
And it's using them as it. It just knew, like, the interesting thing to know in all of these is I actually don't have custom instructions on these things. Like, I just loaded an app and said add a dashboard, and it knew to put in the dashboard section, add a link to it, add all the UIs, add the API calls. We can look at the code. And the important part is the code is for those who want to see code here, which your development team is going to want to. The way it adds the route is the way it figured out how to do the code. It is heavily using, in this case, the Cloudscape design system. So it's not just
Hmm.
nasty div soup. It is like the AI is instructed, like write code with design systems, with components. It's doing all of that. And the beautiful part is engineers can just look at this. They can give feedback. Here, it's given this whole title and description. You can go edit it. But the cool part is you can also chat with it like an agent too. So I can like go in here and just like tag the builder IO bot and say, move this to be a new component in a new file. Engineers can just give code feedback. The code doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be a certain level good, but the fact that the engineers can actually just comment and talk to the AI like a person, you can give it a review just like you would a human. Hey, make these changes for me, and it'll do it. I'll show you the last thing really quickly.
Wait,
Go ahead.
so you were reviewing the code in GitHub, and then you're like, you know what? I don't want it structured like this. So you left that
Yes,
comment in GitHub. Now, are you saying that the AI is going to go and implement that?
correct. So AI, the builder bot says, hey, I'll get right to work. And I
So you
bet
have a
you
builder
this,
bot within GitHub that is connected to Fusion.
correct. And
Wow.
I bet this will only take a moment here for it to push up the change. So here's the changes it added. So it added my updates as expected. It now gave a comment of what it did. And it looks like current weather display is the component it added. So we can double check that I can find that in the list currents. Yep, it did exactly what I asked and moved it out to a new component. So just chat with it like it's your developer.
Wow, that's really cool.
Why don't we check on just to close the loop? So here's the design updates it asked for. It brought in my designs, it added a carousel, it applied this. And
Right. We saw that, component, you copy and paste it in. We had that
yeah,
carousel added, and it was just like Figma.
that's the idea.
Wow, that is really, really fun. And honestly, it's like, I come from the no code background. We're strong believers in visual development. Like
Yeah,
that's what gets me. Like I look at all this code, and I'm just like, I don't love that. But when I look in a visual interface, I love that. Right. And so like, how
100%.
do I compete as a professional programmer in large scale companies, but not look at all that code? Like I don't
Yes.
that like that just does not look like fun, but I like to build
Yes.
things. So this gives me an opportunity as a visual developer interface tool where you can get in there and do some really cool things.
Oh, 100%. I mean, here, let me show you a picture really quickly that I think is cool. So back in college, because we're talking about college a little bit today, I studied cognitive science. I dropped out after a couple of years because I thought none of it would be useful. And there's finally been like one thing that's useful. Humans are highly visual like learners and like creatures. The cerebral cortex is like the part of our brain that separates us from things like lizards. It's the thing that makes us smart. It's the bulk around our brain outside of the brainstem and other areas. And I'll show you this example that'll kind of demonstrate why visual is really cool and why it's better than coding, even if you do code. Visual processing is a lot like sort of a GPU. It can run in parallel versus looking at text like code is very sequential to look one by one. So
Yeah.
if you look at this image, here's an image of the word cat a million times, but actually the word bat is in there. If I asked you or anyone to the amount of times the word bat is in this image of cat, you'd have to go one by one. You'd have to go like, okay, not that one, and just boom, boom, boom. Spoiler alert, there's one bat and it's here. Now look at this image. I just say, how many red boxes are there in a grid of
And there's
blue
four.
boxes?
Yeah.
There's four. You instantly know.
Yeah. Right.
Visual is way more powerful. Code is not.
Right.
It's shocking that we still write code today the same way we did in like the 50s. It's just not
Right.
the highest way. When 30% of our smart brain is dedicated to visuals, like that's the highest throughput way of communicating. That's why visuals are how we present things. It's powerful even to someone who is a developer. It's just a better way, like in theory, the future way of doing all these things.
So let's talk about go to market quickly because the
Yeah.
product looks fantastic. It is a very busy marketplace right now, and there are lovables raising hundreds of millions of dollars, both doing this competition. You got the cursors, the windsurf getting destroyed in kind of different ways. But like, how do you rise up with a superior product to let people know that you exist? And if there's any friction of getting your team involved, it's worth that for this, all the benefits it provides. So like, as a CEO, looking at this GTM, what is the play here to get this into more hands across the world? Because it is a fantastic product.
So it's a great question. I have I'm of two minds on this. I have a very hot take point of view and one that's probably not as hot of a take. The hot take point of view is like the reason Cursor is winning over Copilot and others is because it is the better product. And by being so much better and by AI being so kind of exciting, the word of mouth is very strong. And so when all the developers online or in your Slack community or whatever are saying, hey, Cursor is better than Copilot, people listen and people switch to Cursor. And there's another thing happening now, which is actually Cloud Code now is better than Cursor.
Yeah.
You know what's happening?
Right.
Tons of
Now
people are
everyone's
switching.
yeah.
And
Except I heard recently that Cloud Code isn't as good anymore. So now they're looking at the next one.
yeah, people are trying. I see it's not the best,
Yeah.
but yes, they nerfed it a little bit on the pricing. I think they're fixing it. Who knows? I don't think Cursor's winning because of excellence in go-to-market. I actually think it's because of how effective the product is and how much people talk about what they've built and are excited about sharing it. And that's kind of what we're seeing. Like when we launched Fusion, ever since then, the metrics have been up and to the right and accelerating so much. And like, I remember I was like, we were seeing this acceleration of like adoption. And I was like asking our analytics team, like, where is this coming from? And they're like, it's all direct. It's people just going to the homepage. So the best thing you can attribute it to is word of mouth. Now there's a polar opposite side of this, which is a lot of these products are similar and can do similar things. And so there's whole other areas and schools of thought that go-to-market is the only thing that wins. Because you're all selling the same thing. It's all AI, type in a box, get what you get. And there's a lot of merit to that too. So here's how we handle it. The sort of growth and word of mouth helps feed what we call the self-serve side of the business. So that's just like jump in and try it. You don't have to talk to a sales team or anything. Yeah. But unlike the other vibe coding tools that are for not developers, and more similar to a tool like Cloud Code or Cursor, the vibe coding tools for developers, we are similar to those more than the non-dev vibe coding tools in that we will scale to any size app or business. The big thing for us becomes just having really easy ways for you to contact our sales team and the product and make sure our team is really well trained to show you how to use it in your corporate environment. Having things like privacy mode where we're not going to train on your code. We're not even going to see your code in a lot of cases. And so things like that make it so that you can continue to focus on, as a business, the number one thing being just the highest quality product that works the best, the most consistently. And then when people are like, hey, this is working, they can talk to our team and up level. We invest in other things like I make YouTube videos. People like them. And so that helps us get the word out. And we tend to find on that side to attract practitioners, like the people who want to actually be hands-on with the product. The best way I found is like be genuinely educational. Like nobody's looking to scroll through YouTube and find product pitches. They are interested in learning
something. They want to learn something. Yeah.
So I'll do video on Cloud Code. And then, my video on Cloud Code, it shows you a bunch of stuff with Cloud Code. And it's like, by the way, like the biggest drawback people talk about is it's like a terminal UI, and that isn't, it's not the best. Yeah.
It's not sexy.
So if you want something more visual, interestingly, like the way we built our product is like we reverse engineering in Cloud Code as tightly as we possibly could, but made it all visual. And it's like, hey, if you want to explore that, you can. So if you're watching the video, you like what I have to say, and you want to try the visual version, try it out. Stuff like that has worked pretty well for it. I feel good doing that. I don't feel like I'm blatantly trying to shove a product in your face. I'm like, hey, here's some stuff I think is cool. And we do a lot of that.
Yeah. Who is the target user though? Because I assume that target user knows a little bit of code. They want to participate in the structure for the org, the code for the org, but they're maybe not traditional developers and they're also people that have no idea what they're doing with, like, in terms of, they know how to prompt, but they don't know anything about code. Is it that person in between?
Great question. Yeah. So it's usually going to be a technical leaning non-coder. And that usually looks like, it's usually you work in some company where you probably work in some type of pod where you've got like 5 developers and a product manager and a designer. And it's usually the product manager and the designer. They're coming in and they're working closer to the code with the developers that they work with, which is how probably most businesses work. Most businesses that have an actual engineering team, more than just like, a couple people, While it could be a designer working the code, unblocking themselves, product manager too, fairly technical people, but not coders. We find more and more like the developers jump into this tool too, just to unblock themselves on the UI, like worry about the UI work less and worry about the actual functionality, put your brain effort into that and let, vibe code the UIs because we know your design system and stuff like that. So we see those three be the big ones.
Right, because you still have the benefits of Cursor where you can go into code mode and you still use AI to help you with that code mode, but then at any point switch over to UI mode and just make those final adjustments.
Yes. And for the developer, we also have extensions for VS Code and Cursor. You basically go to like Figma within Cursor, mess around visually, and then go back to just normal Cursor or Cloud Code. And it's pretty seamless there too.
Wow. Very impressive. What's the future for the company? What's your head count? Are you guys looking at raising? How do you plan on finding success in this busy market?
Great question. We're at about 120 people right now. We have a decent sized business between the new stuff and the CMS stuff that we've had in the market. And we'll probably fundraise next year. We're seeing a lot of growth. It's really interesting. Like the more growth you have, the more you don't need to fundraise, but the more people want to give you money. And it's like a weird dynamic that we're trying to decide how to navigate. Do we just like never raise again? Or do we go raise a bunch of money? And like, we're debating that now and are, kind of deciding what we think would be best for us. There's a good reason to want to, get your product in the hands of as many people as you can, as quickly as you can, if it's working well, like we're seeing. And then for future of like the product overall, I mean, I think the interesting part is this combination of, just working in workflow. So like the big thing coming up is things like background agents, just to make it really seamless, just assign tickets, kick off from Slack, just like start agents working on your behalf, have them make 3 versions of everything you ask for. So you can pick your favorite one, but then be able to just seamlessly pop into visual mode and just try it, give it feedback, like just get hands-on and be able to seamlessly move between the two. If you want to go like distant future, I think what's really interesting is when you have these tools that can update code so quickly and now everyone can contribute to code, what can happen then is your pull request volume goes up. So there's a lot of code engineers have to review. And what's really interesting about the original approach we took as a business is we could still use AI and basically have almost the same exact product experience you just saw. But any change you want to do, you don't need a pull request. It actually goes live via an API. If your marketing team wants to make 10 homepage updates a day, engineers don't want 10 PRs and 10 deploys a day of the homepage. But if you could just push a button and it goes live, that's pretty cool. So I do think there's going to be this new sort of like application architecture that happens over time that maybe is very similar to how we're doing it with existing customers, where when you unlock like being able to have safe updates and kind of a sandbox go live without actual code update and deployments needing to happen, but it can actually still accomplish the same types of stuff, interactive, new visual stuff. I think it not only unblocks like more updates faster, more learnings, but then things can get really crazy because, you can start having agents push out a change to a site, like your homepage updates. And then it looks at the data. Where are people clicking? What are they doing? And then it makes another version, starts making multiple versions, A/B test 10 versions and see what works best. And you can just have the AI optimize itself. You can extrapolate that even further and get to the point where once LLMs, the speed keeps going up and the cost keeps coming down, you can get to the point where like everyone who goes to jcrew.com or whatever, everybody sees a totally different website. It's literally just building the website on the fly in front of you. And we have a lot of the interesting pieces to do that. We already deliver things without code updates and all. That's what the CMS side of the business has always done. And so us mirroring those things and getting to the point where like, some people think like the web will be fully agentic. Everybody's going to just have a chat interface for everything. Why would I go shop when I could just have a personal assistant send me clothes? And it's like, that is cool, but sometimes I do want to browse. Like I do want to see stuff. And if you could have something as dynamic and personalized as a chat assistant, but actually as visual, talking about, again, visual processing in our brain, and it's important, but actually make it so visual, like literally it's just coding stuff up, and I see different stuff, like based on what I click on and what I browse, my website just becomes totally different than yours. I think a lot of what we're doing can marry nicely into that and do some wild stuff. So that's some of the stuff I'm excited about long-term.
Really awesome. I just have a couple more questions for you and then we'll get you out of here. For those that want to build like a whole new app from the ground up, but want to use your product, how do you suggest that they start building that product?
Great question. You literally just go build.io and type in the box and build an app. That's a use case you can do. And the nice part is we hear really great feedback on the use case. And the nice part is no matter how big your app gets and how much it scales, you don't have to do what a lot of people come in. Like I started in Lovable and then I moved it to Cursor because it got big.
Yeah.
Don't have to do that. You can be using Cursor and Fusion together. So start small and comes the world's biggest app. Doesn't matter. The tools will grow with you unlimited. So go nuts. Everyone can just get their hands on right now.
Incredible. Say you are non-technical, you don't know how to code, but you want to use a product like yours and start participating in that process. What are some educational tips that you can give to those to like get started and to participate?
Great question. So I'm the biggest fan. This is maybe like my learning style of just getting hands on and getting your hands dirty. So I'm definitely like the type of like, I wouldn't watch 100 YouTube videos or anything. I would do two things. The core thing is just get your hands on and get prompting. Dedicate any budget you would have spent into credits instead. Like, just it does cost money for the AI to do stuff. So put your budget towards that and learn through trial and error. And the biggest thing I found to help with success with that is like build something you care about. Like instead of building toy apps, like really try and solve a problem you have and
with
learn
very
and iterate.
specific things that you need to do. Yeah.
And focus on that. Just really keep trying to build. And if you ever get stuck, go to friends, go to Discord communities, ask questions, but just keep coming back to trying it yourself, try to unblock yourself, whatever you need.
That's incredible. Steve, it's been wonderful talking to you, the co-founder and CEO of Builder.io. For those that want to get started, where do they learn more?
I love the domain name is the company name. So just type that in the browser and start going.
Awesome. Thanks for taking the time to chat with us this week.
Totally. Thanks for having me.